So, welcome friends. Let's each settle into this space wherever we are today. And as your body physically settles, just allow your gaze to soften or allow your eyes to close, whichever feels better. And let's just pause before we even notice the breath, before we check in with our mind, our body. Let's just pause with a sense of gratitude. Gratitude for time to pause. Time to reset ourselves back into this present moment and just marvel at how incredible it is. So just cultivate inside of yourself a sense of gratitude for just the chance to be here, collectively, individually. And I always like to think, as we show up together, the gratitude that I have because I know there are people around this planet doing the very same thing. And that encourages me. It encourages me for our planet. It encourages me for humanity. And I hope that you can feel that sense of gratitude within yourself as well. So as you pause and as your body settles, like giving yourself permission to adjust if you need to adjust, let's settle in together with just a few breaths. So giving yourself a slow, deep breath in. And a full, deep breath out. And then breathing in. And breathing out. And then one more together. Breathing in. And then let it go. And then on that next inhale, you decide the pace. Just a slow, beautiful, steady rhythm of an in and out breath. And let that anchor you to the present moment as much as the seat or the spot that you have found is anchoring you onto the earth. So welcome to our practice. We show up and we practice. We practice being present. We practice sitting with ourselves. We practice using all of these tools that we continue to cultivate day in and day out. We practice calming these waves of our thoughts, all this turmoil in our mind. We don't ask the mind to be quiet. We don't ask it to turn off. We just ask the waves to calm a bit. And we find this beautiful ebb and flow as much as the breath ebbs and flows. And here we are. And so we're on this journey across these days together, just learning a little more about these ancient teachings. These teachings that help to not only inform our meditation practice, but to inform our lives, our everyday living in this busy, noisy world. And so the other day we started talking and sitting with this idea of Sveliyaya. And I'd like to revisit it again today. And so just to set the context, Sveliyaya is this teaching that asks us to study ourselves. Not the kind of studying that you do when you look in the mirror and you try to find the things that you want to fix and the things that maybe you're not satisfied with, because I know human nature, we tend to do that. This self-study is different. It's the self-study of really and truly sitting with ourselves right here. Being with ourselves, discovering things about ourselves as we sit and as we just be. We don't have an agenda. We're not trying to add more knowledge to our brain and to our mind. We're just trying to know ourselves a little bit better. The deep core of who we are. And so I gave this example the other day, and I want to stay with this. So let me set the context for all of us. This idea that our life is this series of all these strings, and you kind of picture this web inside of you of all these experiences that you've had. Just this string of this event, and it usually has a starting point and an ending point, and then next to it there's another string and another line of activity or experience that we've all had. And we have so many of these, and they make up this story of us. But within these strings, there are these knots. And these knots represent these pieces of those experiences that stick with us. And I wish I could say that all those knots are all the joyous, celebratory moments that we all want to remember. But what we usually find as we sit with ourselves and we know ourselves better is that we've tied these knots into the places that were hard, that were painful, that were challenging, that broke our hearts. And what the human condition does, we have these memories, these thumbprints of experience that they keep going back to the knots. These things just get dredged up again and again. Sometimes we don't even realize that we're doing it. And it's not that those memories are bad or that they are wrong. It's that they're robbing us from this incredible, beautiful present moment. We can't be present if we're stuck in the past. And so this yogic teaching of Svelaya helps us to understand where we're stuck, where these knots are tensed up and holding us back. I thought a lot about this over the last few days, of how do we approach these knots in these strings of our story? How do we approach a knot in physical things that we encounter? Well, usually we attempt to just gently undo it, but oftentimes it doesn't happen quickly, and we get frustrated, and our grip around the knot gets a little tighter, and what we end up doing is knotting it up more. And what happens to us as people when we keep revisiting these knots, these moments of tension, of challenge, of illness, of disappointment, of heartbreak, each time we revisit them, not only does it rob us of the present moment, but it reinforces the foothold that those things have in our lives now. It makes the knot a little tighter. But what if we approached these knots with compassion and patience and grace? What if we understand this is our story? These are our experiences. They make up, as someone said to me recently, this tapestry of our life. But I want to just understand it exists, but not get stuck there. Because here in this present moment, I have a chance for a new color, a new string, a new experience in this part of the tapestry that I'm living right now. And I don't want to miss that. Again, it doesn't discount the fact that we have memories and we have experiences and we have emotional scars. But they've already had their chance. They've already taken up our time. They've already taken our energy. Isn't it time to loosen their hold on our lives? And so what I would encourage us to do, I want us just to practice this idea of patience, compassion, and grace for these knotted up parts of us. I'd like you, wherever you are seated or lying down in your spot, just allow your palms to open up. Just lay them in your lap or lay them next to you wherever you are. Just turn them up. And then close your fingers and wrap your thumb around those fingers and just make a fist with each hand. And I'd like us just, don't even squeeze too tightly, but I'd like us just to sit here for just the next few breaths and just let that fist just stay. And just notice how that feels. Is this how we want to walk through life? our hands and these fists all tensed up. But what tends to happen is these knots have a foothold. We start off our day like this with these hands gripped. And then a new challenge comes. And when the new challenge comes, we tend to squeeze a little tighter. So just squeeze those fists just a little more. We started off our day with just the knot from the past, and now a new challenge is there. And things are getting more tense, more uncomfortable. And then we encounter someone in our day, at our homes, in our office, in traffic, who's just not very kind, and we're already tensed up, and these knots are already so tight. And guess what happens? Squeeze those fists just a little bit more. Notice how your hands feel. And just think to yourself, how long could I last like this? How long can I go through life like this? And what will I miss by living this way? And then we come to meditation, or we sit in nature, or we show up on our yoga mat, and now open up those hands. And we realize that we've got a space to let this stuff go. Notice how your hands feel. Because this practice, your practice on your mat, your practice as you walk, or you sit in nature and you look at the sky and the colors and you hear the birds, that's where you find the grace and the compassion and the patience. So now how do we stay like this with these light, open, easeful hands? How do we stay like this and not allow those knots to keep having a foothold in our lives? The answer is practice. We don't call this meditation mastery. We don't call this meditation any other word. We call it practice. We show up here. We show up on our own in our quiet time. We sit outside and we marvel at the sunrise and at the moon. We read text that build us up and teach us good, affirming things. And little by little, those knots and their power start to loosen. And then over time, what you will notice is that when the next challenge comes along this string of life, the challenge comes, you continue to breathe, you continue to show up with grace and patience and compassion, and the challenge passes, and no knot is made. And I don't say this as wishful thinking for all of us. I say this because this is how it works. We learn enough through this idea of sveliaya. We learn about ourselves. We study the knots. We understand how they got there. And we approach them with grace, patience, and compassion. They begin to loosen, and we're much more mindful when the next challenge comes. Maybe it lasts moments, maybe it lasts days. There are some challenges that last seasons of our life, but none of them have to create knots in this beautiful tapestry, these strings of our life. It's up to us. So I started us off today asking us just to marvel at this present moment. Be amazed at the breath that fills you up and gives you life in this moment. And then be amazed as you breathe out and your body lets go of what it doesn't need and holds on to what it does. And that moment passes. And then be prepared to be amazed again as the next breath comes and a new moment arrives. What if we could spend our time when we're not in meditation, when we're not in yoga, when we're not enveloped in nature? What if we could spend the rest of our time, the busy parts of our day, one moment at a time, committed to not let these knots of our experience rob us of this next present moment? That is the gift of Sveliaya. We can't just get up from our meditation cushion and then tomorrow all of a sudden this works. We've got to learn ourselves. We've got to study ourselves. We have to know where the spots are that we tend to knot things up. And then just do it a little bit differently next time. With grace, with compassion, and with patience. And so what I invite us to do for these next couple of moments of silence, of quiet, is be so okay with just sitting with you. There's no noise, there's no music, there's no talking. It's just you. And you'll notice that your mind is going to try to go. It might hear a sound, it might hear a distraction, something in your body will want to move. But what I encourage you to do is when that happens, because it will, just say to yourself, wow, here I am in this present moment. How blessed I am. So let's just pause. Sit with ourselves. See ourselves, study ourselves, and be amazed at the present moment we get to live. And as you continue to breathe, I encourage each of us, myself included, that in the coming days, welcome the chance to sit with yourself. At the office, maybe you close your door and you pause for one moment. Maybe at home you find a quiet place and you just pull away from the noise for just a bit. You take a walk outside, you do something to pull away. And you start getting okay with being with just you. Practice it one moment at a time. Welcome the moments with yourself. And go into it with the mindset of, I also want to welcome whatever I discover. I want to welcome whatever knots I notice, whatever patterns I recognize. I welcome them. Because the only way you can approach them with grace and compassion and patience is to know what it is that you're working with. Which means you need time away, just a minute at a time, to be with just you. And then just imagine, not like it's something far off, but like it's something that is so very possible. Imagine living a life without the knots. A life where you have these experiences, you have these memories, but they have their place. We call it the past. And we're so busy living in the present moment, we'd never think about giving them any extra time beyond what they already had. Sitting with ourselves, Sveliaya, learning ourselves, and letting these knots go. Namaste.